Did you see the protests in UP and Delhi? Students were out on the streets protesting against UGC's new guidelines, the Promotion of Equity in Higher Education Institutions Regulations 2026. These are strict anti-discrimination guidelines for universities. The Supreme Court has put these rules on hold for now, calling them vague with dangerous consequences.
Yeah, and this came after the Supreme Court itself had asked UGC to tighten things up. The old 2012 regulations were voluntary and clearly failing. Remember the tragic case of Rohit Vemula and Payal Tadvi, who died by suicide after being allegedly discriminated based on their caste. Their mothers have filed a PIL. The numbers show that caste discrimination complaints jumped 118% in just 5 years. That is 378 cases in 2024 alone.
The new rules make compliance mandatory. They're setting up entire systems, equity committees, equal opportunity centers, helplines, complaint portals, institutional ombudsperson, mobile squads on campuses. Women and PWDs must be represented in these committees. Institute heads would be held directly accountable. Police complaints must be registered the same day the complaint is filed, and annual action taken reports also have to be filed. Failure to comply with these rules can result in penalties, which can even go up to derecognition.
That's comprehensive, but here's the controversy. Protesters say discrimination is limited only to SC, ST, OBC. What about general category representation? There is no safeguard against false complaints. The 2012 rules had provisions to punish false cases. That is removed now. They are calling it reverse discrimination. Also, short timelines means rushed decisions.
But supporters argue that targeted protection is necessary for marginalized groups to feel safe while reporting. Every protective law can be potentially misused. SC, ST Act, Dowry Act, sexual harassment, but we don't scrap them for this reason. UGC's logic is that punishment provisions were deterring people from reporting, fearing that they would be labeled false if evidence wasn't enough. Civil remedies like defamation and criminal provisions against false reporting still exist anyway. Also, the procedure of fact-based inquiries will ensure that no individual can be penalized without due process.
Here is what people miss. These regulations are not just about caste, they cover gender, religion, disability. But anxiety surfaces almost exclusively around caste. Also, it is not student-centric anymore. The 2012 framework excluded teachers and non-teaching staff, especially the Class D workers, who are overwhelmingly Dalit and Adivasi. Now, anyone can file the complaint.
But after the stay on the implementation on these rules, the 2012 rules are back. Supreme Court raised some points. Why define discrimination only on the basis of caste? It presumes that general category doesn't face discrimination. What about other forms of discrimination on campuses, like between juniors and seniors, North Indian versus South Indian, or for example against students from northeastern states? And ragging, the most common campus discrimination, isn't addressed.
There's a counter argument though. In democratic societies, equality law recognizes discrimination flows from structural dominance to vulnerabilities. Racial law aren't meant to protect white people from black. Gender's law don't protect men from women. Caste protection target those who have been historically excluded. The regulations don't create a hierarchy of protection. They reflect a hierarchy of disadvantage. That's substantive equality, which our constitution endorses. Universities in UK, US and other countries have had similar offices for decades.
Ground reality is tricky though. Most campus discrimination isn't obvious slurs. It takes the form of biased evaluation, differential mentoring, social exclusion, cumulative academic disadvantage, subtle, institutionalized. These are harder to prove, which makes strong institutional mechanisms even more critical.
The Supreme Court now wants expert re-examination. The question is stronger targeted protections for historically marginalized groups or broader inclusive framework. The 2012 guidelines failed. The system was failing students. But whether these 2026 rules are the answer, that needs a careful thought and not knee-jerk reactions. Thank you.